For the past 24 years, Bill Gates has been the subject of countless news stories praising his generosity. Every day, there's a new headline shedding light on his foundation's immense contributions. Millions here, billions there. These sums are staggering to most of us, but they've also dulled our critical thinking. The constant stream of praise for Gates' philanthropy has created a dangerous myth, one that obscures the truth about who he really is and what he's truly up to. The $75 billion Gates Foundation is working hard to solve global issues. But is it really doing what it's entitled to? Is the world's largest philanthropist really up to serving the poor? Or, as some critics argue, is the foundation just like a modern-day aristocracy, exerting disproportionate control over global development agendas? In today's video, we are going to take an insider look at the Gates Foundation and figure out what the reality is. The Gates Foundation started in 2000, when Bill Gates combined two smaller foundations he'd set up in the 90s. It wasn't a quiet launch, but a grand entrance onto the philanthropic stage. Bill and his now ex-wife Melinda boldly declared that the status quo wasn't cutting it. They saw gaping chasms in global development, health, and U.S. education, particularly in the elementary and high school sectors. Their plan? They decided to invest heavily in these crucial fields. Their goal was straightforward: to narrow the gap between those with opportunities and those without, no matter where they lived. And why? Because they'd seen it with their own eyes. They'd traveled the world and seen how unfair things were for so many people. So, as expected, the foundation did really well. Since its inception, the foundation has spent more than $50 billion to save the world, out of which the major portion, nearly $40 billion, was channeled into global development and health programs by the Gates Foundation, making it the heavyweight champ of American philanthropy. Just to put things in perspective, back in 2015, it gave out a whopping $3.8 billion, while others barely hit $1 billion. That's next-level giving right there. During COVID-19, the foundation committed more than $2 billion to fight off the pandemic. Gavi, a nonprofit organization created by Bill Gates, is sending millions of vaccines all around the world. Bill Gates also claims that the foundation is going to spend $9 billion a year by 2026. So what's not to love about this level of generosity from our beloved philanthropist? Well, this is a one-sided story. It's easy to be wowed by the generosity of Bill Gates when you hear about the massive amounts he's given to humanity. But if you dig deeper into those numbers, you might be in for a surprise. What you uncover could shake your perception of his generosity to its core. Even after 2 decades of philanthropy, Bill Gates still reigns as one of the wealthiest folks on Earth. With a personal fortune totaling a mind-blowing $130 billion, he is ahead of the GDP of almost every struggling nation the Gates Foundation aids. When we take a closer look at Gates, it's not just about praising his philanthropy, it's about questioning why, with his immense wealth, he's only giving away a fraction of what he could. Why is everyone talking about the $1 million gifts his foundation donates and not about the $130 billion he does not donate? Nowadays, Melinda is all over the news channels since she's revealed that she is leaving the Gates Foundation and is receiving a large sum of money as part of the agreement, a whopping $12.5 million. She said she is planning to start her own foundation. But why do we smell something fishy here? Well, launching my own foundation can mean digesting money in peace. It's no secret that foundations are often used as a clever way to stash cash away from the taxman. They're basically a fancy tool for the wealthy and influential to launder their money. But is the Gates Foundation one of them? Is it an aristocratic gameplay more than a charity? Let's dig deeper and find out. So, what Bill Gates donates seems like $1 million billion philanthropy, but in comparison to governmental efforts in the same programs, it pales in comparison. For instance, the US government chips in around $11 billion annually for global health initiatives, but the Gates, according to their own stats, have been averaging $780 million per year for the same cause. Similarly, the Gates Foundation started getting a lot of attention because they were giving hefty sums of money to organizations like the World Health Organization. At one point, they were the second biggest donor to the WHO, right after the US government. But the truth is, WHO itself doesn't have a massive budget to begin with. So, compared to what other organizations were putting in, the Gates Foundation's contributions seemed like pocket change. Because of this, some folks rightly called them out for overstepping their bounds as a private entity. But on the flip side, they often got praised way too much for things they didn't entirely cause. Like when they took credit for improvements in health outcomes that were more about China's booming economy than anything else. And not only does Bill Gates confuse us with his numbers, he actually benefits the elite through his foundation. Gates' immense wealth could make a huge difference in the world if it was handed out directly to those in need. But that's not how the Gates Foundation's Father Knows Best bureaucratic philanthropy works. 90% of his charity ends up in rich countries, not the ones he claims to be helping. Sure, you'll see lots of smiling faces on the Gates Foundation website, but the reality is that it's mostly funding white-collared folks in the global north to help those wearing dashikis, saris, kangas, and burqas in the global south. In a 2009 study, it was revealed that out of the 659 NGOs receiving grants from the Gates Foundation between 1998 and 2007, only 37 were headquartered in low or middle-income countries. In 2014, the Gates Foundation handed over $19 million to MasterCard to step into the Kenya market, claiming it would empower Kenyans by offering them their first credit card. Even if we, as US taxpayers, reckon MasterCard should foot its own expansion bills, our tax dollars still went into the mix without us having a say. And what about Kenyans? They might prefer their own companies developing financial services instead of American giants backed by philanthropy funding an American company sending profits back to America. This setup can make it tougher for local entrepreneurs to thrive and serve their communities. But guess what? Kenyans weren't in on this decision either. This trend did not stop there. Gates Foundation again donated $3.7 million to support women's empowerment groups in India and East Africa. But where was the funding made? In India? No. It must be South Africa. No. It ended up in a think tank in Washington. That's not charity. We would say that's philanthropic capitalism. Bill Gates, with his supposedly massive donations, is creating a form of colonialism. It could not be called charity by any means. Now, you might be guessing that it was decades ago, and situations may have changed since then. Maybe Bill Gates has now embraced real philanthropy. Much to your disappointment, it was 2018, and things continued to be that way. In 2018, 83.6% of their funding went to high-income nations, with a mere 1.7% trickling down to low-income nations. Even that tiny 1.7% can be deceiving. For instance, $4 million was earmarked for Tanzania, but it ended up in the pockets of a biosciences firm's Tanzanian branch, which is actually based in India. And it was not only MasterCard that the Gates Foundation helped sprawl, but the Gates Foundation has also been greasing the wheels for Coca-Cola's expansion in Africa. Melinda Gates was excited that you could get a Coke in the middle of the Sahara now. But what about the communities left high and dry after Coca-Cola struck deals with their governments, leading to water shortages? If the Gates Foundation genuinely aimed to uplift the underprivileged, shouldn't it be steering more support towards those in need rather than supporting the status quo? African agriculture is another focal point of the Gates Foundation that has been highly criticized. Grain, an independent organization supporting small farmers, assessed the $3 billion in grants the Gates Foundation dished out for agriculture and found out that they're tackling hunger down south by sending money up north. Instead of supporting local farmers directly, the foundation keeps putting its money into fancy research setups where companies make tech in labs and then sell it to farmers. So farmers just end up buying technology created by the companies that are funded by the Gates Foundation. Where is the profit to farmers here? We failed to spot it. The same thing happened in Ethiopia, where Gates announced that he would support programs developed for Africa and by Africans. Where is he funding under this program? Johns Hopkins University, USA, Columbia University, USA, Tanager in Washington, Pamela Steele Associates in England, Ohio State University, USA, and the World Bank. Some of these initiatives might succeed, while others might not. But let's be real here. This isn't about empowering Africans to lead their own programs. It's what some folks call karma colonialism. Bill and Melinda Gates, along with their wealthy pals from the West, seem to think they've got it all figured out for the rest of us, whether we're in Africa, Asia, or anywhere else. It's like they see the world's poor as pets in need of care and attention. We want them healthy and affectionate, but heaven forbid they ever want a seat at the table in the same meal as everyone else. But the good thing is, Bill Gates has now been caught red-handed. After decades of the world being scammed by his colonial form of charity, people are now trying to look at the flip side of the coin. There's a rising chorus of voices from the very people Bill Gates aims to help, saying his efforts might be causing more harm than good. In fact, Some are straight up asking him to step back from being the helping hand. An op-ed in Scientific American, penned by Millian Belay and Bridget Mugambi from the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, boldly declared Bill Gates should stop telling Africans what kind of agriculture Africans need. From farmer groups in sub-Saharan Africa to global health experts and even teachers in the US, critics are pointing out the high costs and collateral damages of Gates' philanthropic endeavors. Nobody handed Gates a leadership badge to guide the world in any area. He simply used his immense wealth to seize control. He's got his fingers in all the important pies, trying to reshape how we help the less fortunate, all based on his own narrow views. The Microsoft big shot even faces allegations of throwing his weight around in his charitable ventures, like trying to take over fields such as malaria research and health metrics. It's hard to find a better term for this type of power, where the richest guy calls all the shots, than oligarchy. And nobody has made oligarchy more mainstream and accepted than Gates. By camouflaging his money-influencing politics moves as charity work, Gates rakes in tax perks, endless praise, and public adoration. Philanthropy has certainly treated our friendly billionaire very, very well. So here we have peeled off the Gates Foundation layer by layer to find out if it really is a new form of aristocracy. Sadly, what we extract from this discussion is that these million-dollar donations made by Bill Gates surely fall under philanthrocapitalism, which somehow helps the rich to become richer. Giving away money should bridge gaps in society, not widen them. But in many ways, Gates might come off more like a misanthrope, someone who, if not outright despises others, sees himself as superior. His disregard for the needs, rights, and dignity of the very people he claims to help reveals a colonial mindset in his philanthropic efforts. This limits what he can truly achieve and explains why the Gates Foundation falls short. It's not that Gates lacks good intentions or that his charity work has never made a positive impact. Sure, the billions the foundation has poured out have helped people and even saved lives, but these victories are just a glimmer in the darkness. We need to realize that true humanitarianism is to fight off inequality and injustice and stand against those in power, not to put them on a pedestal. And that's why the Gates Foundation poses more of a problem than a solution.